Hello, my wonderful class. I am out today, as all of you should know, and therefore I've made you a special video. I am just double checking with myself that it is recording, so I should be fine, because I would hate to have to redo this again. So anyways, today you are without me, which is very sad, and we are doing 2.9 today. As always, just to give you all a visual, I am sitting alone in the bio closet doing this and weirdly talking to myself. So just, again, know how awkward this is for me. So anyways, today we're doing 2.9, and that means we are talking about percents, which is very exciting. So today, and by the way, you should have your pretty packet out. Hopefully everyone does. So today we're going to be talking about percent, and so just so we can kind of review, hopefully it's review, what we mean by percent. We are talking about percents for a reason, because we just talked about ratios, and percents are also a ratio, but it's not just a random ratio. When we have a percent as a ratio or a fraction, remember it's a ratio that's in the 100ths, or aka it's something that's over 100. So when we have it as a fraction, we have whatever our percent is, it's always going to be out of 100. So again, ratios, proportions, percents, all the same thing kind of. So in example, if we had 25%, and if we should have in our warm-up talked about how to make that a decimal, but if we did that as a decimal, it would be 0.25. I was going to call on someone, but never mind. And if I were to do that as a fraction, so again, coming back to this whole ratio idea, how about I'll ask for someone who can raise their hand and tell me what 0.25 or 25% would be as a fraction. And I'm going to call on Bryce, because Bryce was being all whiny the other day about me not giving him enough time to answer the question. So I'm going to sit here in awkward silence and give Bryce a lot of time to now answer what is 0.25 or 25% as a fraction. I hope that was enough time, Bryce, because that felt really awkward for me. So I'm also going to assume you got that right. So it is 25 over 100. And how about Bryce? If I were to simplify this fraction, which, whatever, we'll just do it right now. If I were to simplify that fraction, what would 25 over 100 simplify to? And maybe you've answered this, maybe you haven't. If you haven't, as a reminder, you're welcome to pause the video if Bryce needs some more time to answer the questions. But yes, Bryce, it is equal to 1 over 4. Okay. Great. So anyways, when we're talking about percents today, you'll also hear me referring to the whole. So when we're talking about percents, which again is out of 100, that 100 that we're talking about is also what we refer to as the whole, because any percent is something out of 100, so it's something out of that whole, which we can also kind of refer to as the total. Okay, but I will be using the word whole a lot, kind of like when you're thinking about a pizza or a cake. The whole cake is the entire cake, and that's 100% of the cake, or 100% of the pizza is the whole pizza. Okay, cool. Anyways, always bring it back to food. So what we're going to see today are a couple things. So we're going to be doing a bunch of problems, basically, where they're asking us to find the percent, they're asking us to find 50%, to find blah, 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 all this stuff. And so we're going to talk about the 3 different ways that they're going to ask about these problems. And so the first type of problem that you'll see, let's do a little star for fun, is they're going to ask you, you'll be finding the part. So you might be finding well, hold on, we'll do an example. So if you're finding the part, so we have the whole, we have the part, finding the part would be some sort of question that tells you to find 50% of 20. That's great if some of you can do this in your head, but remember we're in algebra, so we are going to do this algebraically. So when we're doing percentages, and also, by the way, it's not always going to be this easy, so just remember that, but That's great that you can do this in your head. I can too. We're doing it algebraically. So when we're going to be setting up these problems, we're kind of going to keep like a little bit of a pattern. Again, this is going to be proportions. So we have two fractions equal to each other. So for our proportions for these, we're going to have some sort of part out of a whole that is equal to some sort of percent that's out of 100, okay? So it's the part over the whole, part over the whole, okay? So in this particular problem, we want to find 50% of 20. When we have a percent, that's kind of like the easiest of the proportions to set up. So we can, it doesn't have to be in this order, but let's just for, whatever consistency's sake, just keep it like this for now. So if I were to do the 50%, that's this fraction right here. Whatever my percent is, I'm going to make that my fraction. So on this side, I can at least write 50 over 100, because that's the percent I've been given, and I know that as a fraction it's out of 100, so I write that as 50 over 100. I don't write 50% over 100, because that's totally different. I just keep that as 50, the percent sign goes away, because 50 over 100 is equal to 50%. Oh my gosh, the other class is like watching me through the windows. It's so awkward. Okay. Anyways, we want to find 50% of 20. When we see that of, that's kind of like a key word in percentages, because we want to know how much of that whole is being used. So of 20 kind of tells us that 20 is going to be the whole. How much is 50% of 20? 20% is the whole. So when I'm thinking of this fraction right here, I know that the whole is going to be 20. And I want to find what 50% of 20 is. And you'll notice, again, I have the wholes on the bottom. So 100 is always our whole, and 20 in this case is our whole. So we want to know what part of 20 is equal to 50%. So if I don't know what the part is, that's where we put a pretty X, okay? So I know tons of you are getting very excited right now because we should all know what our next step is. So who would like to raise their hand and tell us the next step? Ooh, who to pick? There's so many of you raising your hands, I'm hoping. How about, you know what? Actually, no, never mind. Sam, how about you tell us what we would do next? And again, I will give you a nice, long, awkward pause so that you can answer this. If there's not enough time, you can pause the video. I'm sorry, but me sitting here awkwardly is really not working. So anyways, I'm sure Sam said that, and I'm actually going to rewrite it for fun, that if we have our proportion, we would do our butterfly. So we have our four wings, I guess. We have our little head, okay? So if we do our butterfly, I'm sure Sam told us that we would have 100x equals 1,000. I got 100x by doing 100 times x, and then I got 1,000 by doing 20 times 50. So now I have 100x equals 1,000. So who can tell me my next step? Alexa, go ahead. Yes, Alexa, I'm going to divide both sides by 100. And Alexa, can you also tell us why I'm not subtracting 100? Yes, because 100x is multiplication, so I divide. Awesome, and so now I have my x alone over here, okay? And so now I have 1,000 divided by 100. Now, before anyone sets up their special little fruit trees and starts dividing something, the fun thing, I guess, about zeros is sort of a trick is that you can actually, if you see them, you can just kind of cancel them out. And so you're going to get 10 over 1, which I hope we're all okay with just writing 10. And so we get x equal to 10. And so when we think about actually answering the question, find 50% of 20, our answer is 50% of 20 is 10. Great. Does anyone have any questions? Not that I can answer them. Okay, cool, great. So let's try. We have two more types of problems we're going to see. So this one was finding the part. So we wanted to find how much of 20 is 50%. Now we're going to be, and we'll do another little star. This time we're going to be finding the percent. So this time the thing that we're, finding is the percent, as I've just written. So anyways, you might see a problem that might tell you what percent of 60 is 15. Okay. So when we're doing these problems, we're going to be, again, sticking with that same proportion that we've been doing. So we have some sort of part over some sort of whole is going to be equal to that percent over 100. So again, I usually kind of feel like the percent thing is always the easiest to set up. And in this case, we don't know what the percent is. So it's asking what percent of 60 is 15. So the percent is what we're finding. So if the percent is what I'm finding, would anyone like to tell me what my fraction or ratio on this side would be? How about Isaac? How about you tell me what the fraction would be? Great job, Isaac. It would be x over 100. Good, because my percent is the unknown, so that's my x, and it's always going to be out of 100 because it's a percent. So now I need to look at the other side, the part and the whole. So what percent of 60 is 15? So I kind of talked about that word of before, and of is kind of going to be referring to our whole. So if I see of 60, that means my whole is going to be 60. And I want to know what percent of 60 is 15. So my 15 is the part of 60. Look at this. It's a special proportion. So who would like to raise our hand and tell us the next step? Sky, go ahead. And I'm going to assume that Sky said she's doing the butterfly. It's kind of funny when we talk about doing the butterfly, it's as if we're all going to some swim race to do the butterfly, the swim thing. Not something I would do because I'm not going to swim yet. Anyways, so Sky has told us to do the butterfly. So Sky, what am I going to get once I've done my butterfly? I'm going to pretend to write as you're talking. So Sky just said 60x. That's great. What about on the other side? Wonderful. 1500. Beautiful. So who would like to raise their hands and tell us the next step? Tyler, I know you weren't here the past few classes, but how about you tell us? Great. And Tyler's dividing both sides by 60. And Tyler, can you tell us why I'm not subtracting 60? Yes. I'm going to assume you said that correctly. Yes, because it's multiplication, so I divide. So I'm left with x. And so now I need to do 1500 divided by 60. So again, fun little zero trick. I can cross those out, but now I'm left with 150 divided by 6. Now, just for kicks, we're going to do our long division practice, everyone. So I'm going to scroll up here. So if I have 150 divided by 6, 150 over 6 is 150 divided by 6. So 150 came first to the party, so it gets to go in the house. So 150 divided by 6. So how about we pause? You can pause the video because I don't want to sit here awkwardly. But you can pause the video and someone is going to explain to us division. And how about Lorna? How about you explain the division steps for us? So again, pause the video so I don't have to sit here awkwardly. And pause. Great, so I'm going to assume you paused. I hope you did because, again, I'm not sitting here for this long. So what I'm sure Lorna said was 6 does not go into 1. So now I have to look at 15. 6 goes into 15 twice. Okay, and I put that over the 15 right there. 6 times 2 is 12. I subtract, I get 3. bring down my 0, the 30. 6 goes into 35 times, and it goes in perfectly. So I'm left with 0, which is good. So 6 goes into 150 25 times. So when I'm over here, my x is equal to 25. So as far as my answer, they asked what percent of 60 is 15. So my answer would be 15 is 25% of 60. Great! Yay, everyone. So we have one more type of problem to do, and then you all will be off to work on your own, which is very exciting. So a little star. So now we're going to see problems where we're finding the whole. Okay. So problems where you're finding the whole, they might ask something like 40% of what is 14. So again, I come back to that of. So whenever we see the of, I want to really think about what that means as far as the whole. So remember my proportions. I have some sort of part out of some sort of whole is equal to some sort of percent out of 100. So again, I always like to start with the percent. So I look at my problem and see if I have a percent. Would anyone like to raise their hand and tell me my percent? How about Eva? It would be 40 over 100. Perfect. All right, and so now I need to have some sort of proportion that's a part and a whole. Again, coming back to my problem, we talked about if I have of 20, 20 is my whole. We talked about of 60, 60 is my whole. So now, in this case, I have of what, so my whole is unknown. So underneath, my whole would be x. And so when I'm finding my part, who would like to tell me what the part would be? How about Maylee? And I'm sure you just said 14, and yes, you are correct. So 14 would be my part. So we all know our next step. We're going to go ahead and do the butterfly and draw the little head. So when I have my butterfly, I'm going to have 40x equals 1400. I will take a second for people to catch up. And I'm going to divide both sides by 40. Those cancel. I get x. Oh boy, we've got some more fun division. So my zeros can cancel. So I have 140 over 4. I feel like everyone really wants to do long division again. I totally understand. It is an exciting thing. So what did I have? 140 divided by 4. Okay. 4 goes into 14 3 times. 3 times 4 is 12. Minus is 2. I bring down my 0. 4 goes into 20 5 times evenly. So my answer is 35. I'll take a moment. Hopefully no one is crazy confused. And if you are, you're welcome to pause the video right now. It's for someone to explain it, but I'm going to keep going. Okay. So anyways, I get x is equal to 35, which when I come back to the question, 40% of what is 14? 40% of 35 is 14. Great. All right, so we are all done, and because we're all done, that means that we are going on to classwork. So remember, I am not there to metaphorically hold your hand, so please make sure that you are being open-minded. Use your notes. When you see problems, you're going to see them in these same forms. So it's going to be find whatever percent of something. If you see it written like this, use this process. If you see that it's asking what percent, use this process. If you see that it's asking you of what, use this process, okay? So please use your notes to help you. And as always, be nice to your partners. And I miss you so much. Just kidding, but I kind of do. Okay, bye.